I have a very special knife I want to share with you today. The Randall 10-inch camp knife. Want to hear more about the knife? Stay tuned. So about 2 weeks back, I was on my way out of the city to go camping at Bushcraft National Park. And just before I left, I had got in contact with Randall, a good friend of mine, and we were talking, and I had asked Randall, did he happen to have any knives on hand that he could loan me that I could play with while I was camping away in New Brunswick? And Randall said, yes, I have one. It's his own personal camp knife that he would part with for me to play with. In his words, to abuse. Well, I couldn't do that to another person's knife, but I've seen Randall do some things that I don't think any knife has been built to do with this knife, and it withstood that. So I want to share the knife, some details about the knife with you. Now, before I begin, I have to make this clear. This is not a review. I am in no way qualified to review one of Randall's knives. What I can do is share this knife with you, a little bit about his philosophy on building knives, and tell you how you can learn more about these knives from the master himself. So let me give you a close-up of the knife. So it is a 10-inch blade, high carbon steel, made from a file, full flat grind, or as Randall likes to refer to it, as a full V grind, hand sharpened camp knife. Now what sets this knife different? Oh, I should show you the handle as well. The handle for this knife, Randall has made a epoxy and cord handle, and it is extremely durable. I don't know how many years it's been on there. It does show the holding of it for long periods of time, but the grip is absolutely incredible in terms of it's not slipping out of your hand at all. It couldn't, I don't think. It just seems to grab right onto the skin. But let me give you some more close-ups of it. Now as I do so, I want you to note that it is tapered on this end, and it is a full tang knife even though it is wrapped, and it is tapered on this end. So it's a double tapered knife. Now the double taper is special in the design of this knife because it adds to the structural integrity of the knife more so than just a simple full width knife would. The reasons for that, I'll let Randall go into at some future video because quite honestly they're beyond me. But what I can say is having the blade tapered towards its tip and towards the back of the handle does create a balance point which is about, let's see if I can do this for you, 1.5 inches, not quite 2 inches in front of the handle itself. What it makes it is a little bit tip heavy, but not by much. Now when Randall gave me this knife to test, he just gave me a few hints on it. First off, he said remember, it's not an axe. Anything short of that, have at it. And I've watched Randall, like I said, abuse this knife, and the knife just takes everything that it can be dished out and just comes back asking for more. He also said, be careful of your fingers, it's sharp. Well, Randall, you'll be glad to know I only cut myself once, and that was on the first day. I think the old war horse, as Randall likes to refer to his knife, was trying to tell me it needed to be shown respect. This is the sheath that Randall has made for it, and it's a handmade wooden sheath, and you can see it's being held together with some duct tape and paracord, and it doesn't sit with a lot of snugness inside of there. So when I picked it up out of the trunk of my car, I was holding on to it like this, and that was my mistake, obviously, because as the knife slipped forward, it slid out of its sheath and across my baby finger and opened it up pretty good. Now, like a true bushcrafter, I went into the woods right next to me, pulled down a piece of old man's beard, usnea, chewed it up, placed it on the wound, closed my finger on it. In about 15 minutes, it had stopped bleeding. It took a couple of days to close, but it stopped bleeding, and with no infection whatsoever. My bad. Randall did say it was an extremely sharp knife, and no kidding. Now, what I want to say about this knife, a few things. I don't think I have ever used or even held a knife that will take an edge like this one will and hold it. For the last 2 weeks, I have been doing all, and I mean all, of my camp chores with this knife. That includes all my carving chores, all my fire prep, all my food prep, and everything else. It is just excels in that, and that's what you want from a camp knife. Now, when I say my firewood prep, I do use an axe. I'm here in a national park, so the wood they provide is kiln-dried hardwood. It may as well be fire hardened. It is some of the hardest, toughest wood, I think, on the face of the earth. So I do split it down with an axe into something about the size of my wrist. But after that, this is the knife that I took it down to kindling size, feather stick, and everything else that I needed to do. In addition to do the firewood and the food prep with this knife, I also did some spoon carving. 4 spoons, Randall. I watched Randall use this knife and a smaller knife to carve his spoons, and I thought, you know, from my experience, if you really want to test a knife out, carve a spoon with it. And I wanted to know, could this carve a spoon? Well, I have 2 spoon blanks here in front of you. They're made from extremely hard wood. They are not finished in terms of being fully thinned out and fully sanded. But I did everything from split, and these are made from firewood, by the way, that same kiln dried hardwood that I mentioned a minute ago. I did everything from split the wood to length, cut it down into the smaller blank size, and carve the knife entirely. This will chop just nicely, and Randall had shown me that the point to use is just ahead of the balance point, so the balance point is here. The sweet spot for chopping, this type of carving type chopping, is about mid-blade, maybe just behind mid-blade. It's not to say you can't use the forward part of the blade, but the weight of the blade will work just as effectively here as it does out here, but here you have more control. You can get more speed out here, and if you're trying to do some very heavy work with this, then certainly that'll do. But for the carving work, this is where you want to be on this knife. Now, the knife looks very thin in this aspect, and it is for a reason. This has been Randall's one and only workhorse knife for more years than I think he cares to remember. The knife was considerably thicker when he first made it. It has gone through time after time, sharpening and sharpening and sharpening. So if you were to ask Randall to make one of these knives for you now, it would be thicker. In fact, Randall is constantly working to improve his designs based on his years and years of experience making knives. And his designs now are as near perfect as I think that's humanly possible to make. So let's talk about knife design for a second. You know, there seems to be a prevalent theory now among bushcrafters and other sportsmen who go into the woods that a custom-made knife made from the newest materials using the newest techniques is the best tool to have. But there's another school of thought, which is what Randall ascribes to, and that is that some of the old ways, some of the ways that have been forgotten, are actually the better ways to go. Which one is right? I don't know. I own some very nice custom knives that I've been very fortunate to acquire over time. I like them very dearly, very much so. I enjoy using them. But there's something to be said for the old way of doing things. Randall makes these one at a time, not mass-produced, one at a time, using a very primitive forge, a very primitive anvil, and a series of hammers and files. If that's truly the old-fashioned way to do it. But what sets these knives apart from other knives that are made in the old-fashioned hammer and anvil method is Randall's heat treat. It is a proprietary secret, don't ask him what it is, but it is legendary. This is a knife that I don't think, well, Randall says I couldn't destroy this if I tried. And not that I would try, but his heat treat on his knives is absolutely legendary. So if you're somebody who's looking for a knife that is made in the old way, and it does have its own inherent beauty. It has an old-fashioned look to it, which is truly there. That's not a look made to make a new knife look old. This is an old-style knife made in an old-fashioned way, but made with the knowledge and experience of a master. So if you think you're interested in talking to Randall about having one of these knives made for you, I'm going to leave links below to his YouTube channel and to his Facebook, where you can get a hold of him and talk to him about it. Randall only has a few designs that he wants to produce now. So if you go to Randall and you talk to him about building you a knife, listen to what he has to say. He may take some of your design that you think you'd like to have into consideration, but be very open to what he has to say. He's been around this long enough that he knows, and he's had a lot of people come to him with designs, and he's made them for him, but he's never been fully happy, thinking that the knife that he sent out to those people could have been better, could have benefited more from his experience. So I would encourage you, if you are looking for a knife, something like this, or a smaller knife. Randall makes not a full range, he makes a few knives, and the designs are very well considered, and they are the best that they can be for what they're designed to be for. So if you're interested in one of those designs, I'll give you the information below, and you might want to look it up. He's also very reasonably priced. Randall's not about making a fortune off of his craft. He's about sharing this craft with people. Okay, so let's wrap this up. The Randall Graham 10-inch camp knife. Extraordinary cutting tool. this could be a one-tool option. What I've done with it in the last 2 weeks, what I've come to learn about this knife, if I had to grab one knife when I was running out the door, this likely would be the knife. It's light enough to carry on my belt, but still fully capable of any, and I mean any chore. Splitting big firewood? Probably not. But Randall says that if I really wanted to, as long as this knife will span it, it could be batoned through it. And I've seen him do it, so I believe it's true. Take a look at Randall Graham's knives. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised and probably fall in love with the old-fashioned way that things are done like this. You won't be disappointed if you're able to acquire one from him. Okay. So I'd encourage you to go over and check Randall's channel, subscribe to him, follow along, and follow his journey through life as he continues to make knives. But you may want to subscribe to my channel as well. But in the meantime, get out and explore. Take that path less traveled. It will make all the difference. Bye for now.